Yesterday was quite a day for college football, but let's dive in here in what ended up being a 14-7 win for Ohio State at home against number one Texas. So going into the game, there was just so much hype, and all of that hype was around Texas and Arch Manning. So that, I think, really affected a lot of the analysts in terms of how they looked at this game. And Ohio State was favored in Vegas. And really, you had two heavyweights. They were favored by a point or a point and a half. Usually, you get 3 points for being at home. It was pretty much a toss-up game going in. But you had a lot of people pontificating about this game and frankly going along with all of the frenzy related to Arch Manning in his first start and this notion that somehow that he was going to be the greatest college football player ever. So let's start with Paul Finebaum. He helped feed a lot of the hype coming into this game. This notion that not only was Arch Manning going to be the biggest thing since Tim Tebow, but that Texas was clearly more talented than Ohio State, which really reveals that someone like Finebaum is just an entertainer at the end of the day. He's a commentator. He's not an analyst. He's biased, of course, because he's all about the SEC. But you can't look at these two rosters, the history of these two programs, look at the recruiting that they've done over the last 5 years, look what they've done in the portal, and say that Texas has a clear advantage in terms of talent. That just is completely nonsensical. So going into this game, there were so many high expectations. And then with Ohio State, this notion, I mean, it was understandable that you had analysts saying, okay, they've lost a lot of starters on defense and they're breaking in two new coordinators. All right, particularly Matt Patricia on defense after Knowles went to Penn State. And I get it. That's something where it was a bit of a question mark in terms of just how good was this defense going to be. But again, they're loaded with talent. There is a lot of talent that was waiting to play after all of those seniors went to the NFL. And a lot of these guys had playing time last year. So it's not like you have completely fresh underclassmen who don't know anything coming to start for Ohio State. That's number one. Someone like Avril Reese, who made a huge impact on this game, big, fast linebacker who can also rush the passer. He is a great player, and NFL scouts are already drooling over this kid. So to say that, oh, Ohio State's losing all these players, they're at a real disadvantage. Well, Texas replaced 4 of their 5 offensive linemen. So that's just another example here of where the criteria used to downplay what Ohio State, what their prospects were, was not really applied equally by some people as they were analyzing this game. The other thing is Matt Patricia, obviously the guy knows defense, and we saw that today. So because this ended up being a defensive struggle, and as everyone is talking about, Arch Manning struggled throughout the game. And a big part of that was Matt Patricia's defense. He was disguising coverages, doing the kinds of things that really is old hat for anyone that is a defensive coordinator in the NFL. The question is, how much of that can you do in college? You have to be able to coach up these kids and implement this and execute this in a way that's effective. And obviously, Ohio State was able to do that, and he's got a ton of talent on that team. The secondary looked great. As I mentioned, they've got 2 great linebackers with Reese and Sonny Styles. Maybe the defensive line isn't quite what it was last year. That's probably true, but there's still a lot of talent on that defensive front. So overall, it's an excellent unit, and I think this was really a warning shot to the rest of college football that there isn't going to be much, if any, drop-off with Ohio State on their defense. This defense could actually be better. And I thought Jim Knowles was overrated as a defensive coordinator at Ohio State. Ryan Day had to step in last year after the Oregon game, after Knowles really was not running the defense in the way that it should be run. And you had a lot of outside criticism as to how Knowles was scheming that defense. No other than Nick Saban said that Ohio State was running sort of an archaic defense. So you have Patricia coming in and on day one against the number 1 team in the country and Arch Manning, just dismantling that offense with all of his defensive schemes. Now, the question for everyone, were the struggles that Arch Manning had the result of Ohio State's defense. I mean, obviously that was a big part of it, and playing on the road in a hostile environment on the first game of the season. But we saw some troubling things from Arch Manning as well. Now, he played a lot better in the fourth quarter, but all through the game, his accuracy was not impressive at all. Just not impressive. He was missing open guys. I didn't see what you would expect from someone who's touted as this highly as a prospect. He has so many of the tools, but it just wasn't translating into impressive throws. On the other hand, you have Julian Sayin, who was also a five-star recruit, and he was getting his first start as well, but he wasn't getting any hype going into this game. And if you didn't know anything about these two quarterbacks and you watched this game, I think Sayin looked better. First of all, very quick release, really nice arm, very accurate. And I went into this game thinking, okay, Ryan Day's got to really be aggressive here. They've got these amazing receivers. Just let Sayin rip it and go after Texas. But I think that going into this game, Ryan Day really understood what he had on defense. And I think he knew the plan that Patricia was putting together. So I think he went into this game thinking, I'm going to be very conservative on offense. And he said so much after the game. They really were careful as to what they threw at Julian Sayin in terms of what they asked of him in this game. And Urban Meyer was talking about this before the game as well. And you know he and Ryan Day are talking. Meyer was very clear about this. Like, you got to rely on the run, play field position, and don't put Sayin in a position where he's going to make a mistake that's going to cost you the game. I think they could have had him do a lot more, but it ended up working out very well here, and Sayin looked really good. Again, the warning shot to the rest of college football is they're going to unleash Julian Sayin as they start getting into the softer part of their schedule. And by the time they start playing some of the other big names on their schedule, and then later in the year when they should be in the college football playoff, he's going to be really unleashed. And that if this offense gets anywhere close to what the defense looked like yesterday, Ohio State's going to be a really tough out. So getting into this game, it got off to a really slow start in terms of both offenses. Both teams took shots on fourth down, and Ohio State made some big stops there, and that's what hurt Texas as well. So it was a defensive battle, but then Ohio State finally got a drive going, and they end up in the red zone. They're within the 5-yard line, take a couple of shots, trying to pound the ball in, and end up with a 4th and 1. And this was, they had some pivotal plays in this game, and getting that 4th down touchdown on 4th and 1 at the goal line was just huge. And that gave them the 7-point lead. And Texas just was never able to get anything going. So you get into the second half, and then again, Ohio State is finally able to put something together, and they let Sayin take a shot downfield to Tate. And that was just a huge play. Tate makes an incredible catch, bobbles the ball, but a 42-yard touchdown. Buckeyes go up 14-0. And it's at this point that Day even got more conservative. He was going to play the percentages here. His defense was playing great, and he knew that Manning was just not having a great game. Manning threw one interception, which was a horrible throw by Manning, just horrible. And it was one where you couldn't really blame the pressure. He just took too long to throw it, stared down the receiver. It was an easy interception for the Ohio State defense, and just showed all the troubles he was having in that game. But to Manning's credit, after Ohio State went up 14-0, he started to come to life. They started running him. They started doing the quick offense, no huddle, went with tempo, and that started getting the offense moving. They drive down, they stall on a 4th down, but then they get the ball back again, drive down again, and get stuffed on the 1-yard line. It's just another example of all the problems that Texas is having in the red zone and just how dominant Ohio State has been on defense in the red zone. Well, that carries over, and that had to sting for Texas fans, thinking back to the semifinal last year with the scoop and score and just the play calling that just did not work out for Sarkisian, and they end up with the same issues in this game. And they try the quarterback sneak on 4th and 1. They try to do it quickly just to try to punch it in there. And Ohio State's defense just completely smothered the offensive line, smothered Arch Manning. He didn't have a chance. So even after that miss by Texas, they do finally score late in the game with about 3 minutes left. And then Ohio State being ultra conservative, they get the ball back, didn't really press it at all. They did try one pass, which didn't work out, which meant that they didn't eat as much clock as they should have. But anyways, Texas gets the ball back with under 2 minutes and a chance to tie the game. I mean, that could have changed the whole storyline here. And here Manning makes another really nice throw. They start moving the ball, but then they stall. And you have a 3rd and 5, and he badly misses a wide open receiver on a crossing route. And then on 4th down, Ohio State dials up the pressure, and Manning has to throw underneath. Ohio State stuffs him, and game over. And it was really a huge win for Ohio State. Very disappointing loss for Texas. And you have some real questions here. I think everyone overreacted going into the game with Arch Manning, and they're probably overreacting now. He had a really rough performance. I think they're going to start cleaning some of this stuff up. But it really sets the stage here that Ohio State is looking good. They should be the number 1 team here after this game. Texas has some stuff that they really need to work out. With Ohio State, you've built a nice foundation for the rest of the year. You've got a great defense, but now you can start turning Sayin loose and hopefully get a lot more aggressive on offense. That's what I want to see. They don't have the running backs that they had last year. C.J. Donaldson looked good, so I think they've got a nice power back, but they just don't have those weapons in the running game. Not quite as good as what they had last year, whereas they do have amazing receivers. And Sayin, frankly, has a fantastic arm. He could be better than Will Howard when it comes to throwing the ball. So it's going to be really interesting to see how Ohio State develops here. Texas has to go back to the drawing board, really work on the basics with Manning. I mean, there's something off with his mechanics, his decision-making. And again, maybe it was the pressure, maybe it was the moment, maybe it was all the hype. But that's the big question. And then back to all the entertainers and so-called analysts talking about this game. Obviously, the good thing about guys like Paul Finebaum is they do have a sense of humor. He had a rough day yesterday. Just think about the Alabama loss to Florida State as well. So he's going to take quite a beating on his radio show. And he shrugs it off. He laughs it off when he's so wrong like he is. And that's part of the entertainment of college sports. But if you're betting any money on these games, please don't rely on these sort of commentators, talking heads. Go with the guys that you'll find on YouTube and on podcasts where they really know what they're talking about. They may or may not be right or wrong with their picks, but they're going to educate you about the rosters, about the film study, about the analytics that go into this so that you can make a little bit more informed decision as opposed to just relying on all the hype. So anyways, great start to the season, great first week. And let us know what you think in the comments. And obviously, if you can, subscribe to the channel. Thanks.